Welcome back to Captain America Super Soldier. So let's move on.
Another day strolling through dank hallways, wondering how much
Yeah, just like in our Batman Arkham game, you will hear the books just talking between each other or to themselves. What are you doing, sir? Alright, you're gonna like this, Pedro. Let's see if I can sneak behind this guy.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
And
Do you
by
have
the
a
way,
moment?
doing so, as you may notice, actually boosts your bonus, your special blue meter by the max. So the game encourages you to do that.
Gotta love that.
But here's the interesting thing that I didn't explain in the previous part. The game told, but it was like a blinking miss moment. Similar to Rise of Rome, you may have noticed that the HUD is actually slightly similar to that. Similar to Rise of Rome, doing a special move actually makes you recover your health. It's actually the only way you can heal yourself while you're in combat, by the way. So basically, the game is actually very similar in that mechanic to Rise.
Familiar with the legends of the first Baron Zemo. How in 1480 Harbin Zemo stood alone against an invading horde, armed solely with a sword.
Yeah, basically, get this. Every single Baron Zemo had a name starting with H, because we're weird.
Was already in his blood. And today, I have learned the true reason.
Also, has Steve Long done, audiobooks? Because I will totally read some of those, listen to some of those.
None to my knowledge, but he does, well, as you know, he currently holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the most voiced active roles
I'm
ever.
actually gonna check in the meantime just to be curious.
So what's the one I went to Soldier called then? Humdrum Zemo.
And no, actually, no. Remember, the two Zemos that are entitled officially to the MCU are Henrik, the father, the one that we are hearing the diaries about, but that in the classic Captain America comics is the one that he faced during the war. A guy which was might as well a good time to explain his backstory because it's stupid. It's slightly stupid.
Do you know what Humdrum means?
What?
I said humdrum as in, not very exciting.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know what that meant. But anyway, this guy roamed around with a purple jumpsuit and a cowl on his face, a purple cowl and a crown and a scepter, and was developing a little thing called Adhesive X, like a substance that's a collagen. I don't know why. Captain America, in his mighty wisdom, threw a shield at the vial of Adhesive X, which coated Henrik completely, making sure that he could not remove anymore the cowl from his face.
Basically
because that's a thing.
Well,
and so he vowed revenge towards Steve. His son, instead, Helmut Zemo, just inherited the nobility, the morals of the father, but he has been more reasonable. He has flip-flopped. He's mostly a villain, mind you, but he has worked for the Thunderbolts a couple of times, and he has some rare occasion where he will actually have common sense and help some of the heroes. But it's a rarity. He's mostly a bad guy still. The particularity about Zemo is that while he tends to work for Hydra, he doesn't consider himself really associated with them, just a simple ally. Mm-hmm. Yes, Jova?
Shoot, I forgot.
In the meantime, alright, for this minigame, you're supposed to use both analog stick and slowly make contact with the fuse. If you're just jamming them too much at the same time, Cap will receive a shock that will put him near death.
Yep. Quite realistic.
There we go. Yeah, very good. These enemies with the shield are best dealt with a particular grab move that allows you to, stun them temporarily, which allows you then to finish them off. But, similar again to the Arkham games, you can potentially take them from behind, punching them from behind, and actually gain the advantage even without having to break their guard.
Speaking of the developers,
that's gonna be
of this game. How was Metroid Federation Force?
What?
Yeah, they're also the guys who did that. Here's the thing with, like, many reviewers these days will tell you, it's an okay game, they just had the worst timing possible.
Yeah,
Because people were starving for actually a decent Metroid game after Other M, you know. And this was the first thing that actually got in years, and it looked mediocre at best.
Tell me what I just...
So it'd be like if Conker got a VR game. Oh wait.
It was supposed to, or something, like, it was called like Young Conquer, but that never happened, thankfully.
Wasn't that thing like, I don't know, like dev exclusive or something? Like,
I don't remember that. I know that Microsoft canned it, and for the best, because it looked hideous.
and it's something nobody was asking for. But yeah, to sum up Federation Force here, imagine a perfectly serviceable game that's released at the worst possible time. So kind of like the opposite of Mighty Number 9.
Alright, a new film reel. Let's see, I think I'll watch it later. But yeah, there you go. Another cool thing, as we will see also later down this part, is the fact that Camp can use his heightened senses to mentally construct a way to, you know, proceed forward, or obstacles that he can break with his shield, you know, and where to use his acrobatics. It's in terms of motion, it's similar to what we saw also in the Avengers movie.
I kind of like how this sort of suggests that, you know, the serum may have also boosted his mental capabilities as well. If that's a neat trait.
Now, one cool thing that the Zemo entries tell you is foreshadowing towards the end of the game. It's not like a matter of you don't read them, what happens at the end just pops up out of nowhere. There is some foreshadowing, but the diaries give you some extra foreshadowing if you want. In this case, the Zemo ancestors decide to build the castle here because they found someone or something buried deep in the mountain, something they just simply called the Sleeper. More on that later. For now, let's see what Dr. Zola wants to experiment next.
Has led to a grand departure from my prior approach.
Oh, really?
This Captain America, as their propaganda machine calls him, approaches combat without the use of a firearm.
Sometimes it does, though.
The average enemy soldier is well trained in ballistics, but woefully unprepared for hand-to-hand combat.
That's why I use bayonets usually.
I shall exploit. A heavy dose of the enhancement serum.
I have traveled to another dimension and saw how this was handled the last time. The guy loudly announced his presence to the world before shooting the scientists, which everyone agrees was a damn move.
Pretty much.
So our assassin did things different.
My troops can swarm entrenched enemy positions and engage.
The reason why we're not mass produced and we're confined with the castle is because Zola needs the Cosmic Cube to produce these, so they're just in an experimental phase.
Yeah, as we all know, the Cosmic Cube, while definitely useful, wasn't exactly tested to its fullest capabilities.
And not just that, Red Skull clearly doesn't want Zola to tinker too much with it, and at least not under his supervision.
Because he has his own plans for the cube.
Yeah, as we will learn later when he will show up.
So yeah, overall good stuff with this game. I mean, there are a few things that later... I think another thing I love is, like, well, unlike a lot of games, this one actually paid mind to, you know, focus on what was canon to the MCU at the time or whatnot. Now, granted, some things would later sort of clash with it, but there's, like, at worst, I think maybe one or two things. Like, overall, this is a game that really does take its time and measure to make sure that it could fit.
Not just that, it gave me the idea that next level games actually went down and actually managed to see the movie and construct something based around it. Unlike Liquid Entertainment that we saw previously with 4, that looks like only saw some concept arts and scrambled together a prequel plot.
Yeah.
No, well, next level games always does good work, so I'm not surprised by it, to be honest.
Honestly,
not just they seem to actually put care in what we do, no matter what. Even some of their weakest works.
Yeah.
Considering, remind me, Tim, was this the last non-Nintendo game?
Yes, I think it is. Let me check just to be sure.
Yeah, since this game, they've been working with Nintendo exclusively.
Next Level Games has kind of become Nintendo's Insomniac, because even though they're not a first-party studio owned by Nintendo, at this point they might as well be.
Again, like I mentioned, I think in the previous part, they're mostly famous, for example, for 2009 Punch-Out for the Wii. Then recently they picked up Luigi's Mansion with its sequels,
game.
they also did Metroid. Okay, no, there you go. They did two. They did. Well, technically speaking, they worked for Nintendo, but as proxy. Because
so
they did
second party.
Well, not necessarily Java. They did two third-party games, but only developed the Wii version, specifically Transformers Cybertron Adventures and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon.
Huh.
Sorry, I fucked up, because those were right before this one. And yeah, so this one was the last that they did before going full Nintendo, at least for now. Because 2 years later we will do Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon for the Nintendo 3DS, then 3 years later Metroid Prime Federation Force, and then 2019 Luigi's Mansion 3. In case you need to know what Cap is doing now, he's trying to reach a minigun in order to sabotage it.
Of course, he has to take down the generators first.
Mm-hmm.
What I do like also is like, well, the pacing is so well kept that even though you're technically doing busy work, it never really feels like it.
It helps by mixing the... while it is a Metroidvania, in a sense that the areas are all interconnected, you know, and eventually you can do the backtracking very easily thanks to a sort of a mini hub system, you know. Each of the internal levels are straightforward enough to not having you get lost.
Also, the platforming here is actually well and intuitive here, mixing in some parkour elements, which I enjoy.
The parkour is also very easy because even if you fuck up, the cat doesn't fall or anything, he doesn't he doesn't die, he just stops for a second and you don't get the bonus. It's a case where it's clearly a game that it's designed to be easy for the sake of just enjoying more the entertainment aspect rather than giving you a complete big challenge.
Well, mission accomplished by the looks of it.
For now.
Better not be here when they show up.
Chapter 3, The Wooden Horse.
The Wooden Horse.
Disable it. The invaders are sitting ducks.
Yeah, basically, the thing is that now Camp is expecting reinforcement, specifically in the form of Dum Dum Dugan, Lucky, and Fallsworth, and I think even another one of the invaders. They're supposed to arrive, but of course he needs to disable counter-artillery, you know, anti-air gun, before they can manage to arrive.
It was he who found the sleeper, but the journey was not ended. It was only...
Of course. Such a cliche line. Actually, I haven't talked also about the upgrades. The experience points goes towards this. They're mostly actually to help you improve combat, just like in a Batman Arkham game. Like you can knock out more people with a shield throw. You can perform better actions if you counter, you know, a grappling move, stuff like that.
I'm actually quite surprised that that Nintendo hasn't thought of acquiring next level games
entirely.
They fit so well with Nintendo at this point that and they're not a particularly expensive developer to buy, most likely. So
they're Canadians. If there's one thing that I learned about you know, Canadian-related media is that they tend to be the cheaper options.
So no, I think it would really benefit at this point. Next Level Games seems to really enjoy working with Nintendo since they haven't worked with anybody else in years.
And Lord knows, the last thing we need is for another developer to slip through Nintendo's fingers like with Rare.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They could have bought Rare, technically, but they decided not to.
Well, Okay, well, and I'll wait. I'll answer you after this because this seems important.
No, it's just another round to take. It's just that now it's a more open area, so you can go to town because there are also a lot of explosives.
All right, go on.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Unlike in a standard Arkham game, where it takes time before you start fighting more enemies at the same time, as you can see, even early on in the game, you start fighting around 10, 12 enemies sometimes in the same area.
Yeah.
This is also why the Wii version is technically much more difficult to play because it implements the motion controls, and as Dargo just said, it makes the timing for all of them very difficult to pull out. But go on, Pedro.
Okay, I would like to answer that because people have kind of misconstrued that particular storyline a bit. While it is true that Microsoft's purchase of them didn't help the situation, it definitely aggravated it even more because of how corporate they've handled the company for. It's not entirely Microsoft's fault either, because at the same time there was also a problem that the Stamper brothers also had a thing where they were starting to kind of veer off from being as involved in the games as they used to, and there were even some people from Rare at the time that were leaving. Not a lot of them, like it happened when the Platonic company was founded. But basically when the Stamper brothers left the company and left it to Microsoft, sans that they themselves also carry blame because they themselves didn't seem to care much about the company anymore. They seemed like they wanted to just retire at that point.
So it was sort of a case.
So Rare themselves also are not entirely blameless.
So let me guess. Okay, so let me see if I can get this straight. So Rare was kind of becoming a bit aimless around the time, and that may be part of the reason why Nintendo didn't bother buying them.
Well, why Nintendo didn't buy them? That I cannot answer you, Joe, because I don't work at Nintendo.
Your uncle does?
No. Sadly.
No.
Maybe your dog works at Nintendo.
However, Joe, let's not forget that the last game before the Microsoft era started was Star Fox Adventures, and that game, let's face it, is not exactly a beacon of quality.
Oh god, I keep forgetting that Rare did that game.
Anyway, let me explain this a bit. Using your super meters, you can focus your shield. You can focus your shield throw to actually insta-kill enemies that are hit by it. As you can imagine, even with a full meter, you can kill a maximum of 4 people in the room, but it can give you some serious tactical advantage.
Wow, just like in the Arkham games, they've got those annoying people with the electric batons.
The shock batons. And unlike in the Arkham games, they start showing early on. Well, you've noticed that because the dossier, the film reel that we picked, where Arnim Zola explained that, told us early. That's also what, their functionality. They also help Cap prepare for what's to come.
So yeah, a good dose of enemy variety.
But also another interesting function is that every time Cap gets stunned in some fashion, like he gets thrown to the ground by a bullet or he gets flinched by a hit, by mashing the X button, Cap will recover almost instantly. So basically, it's not a case where the game forces you, stun locks you in a position where it constantly takes the better advantage of you. You can actually get away easily from an enemy, trying to hitting you over and over again. That's nice. Go on.
But yeah, Star Fox Adventures was the last game before they went to Microsoft. So even before Microsoft entered the picture, Rare was already showing signs of having internal problems, basically.
Fair enough.
Okay, there's another thing that I had to note. Aside from the main game not having a very consistent frame rate, so far it has been still relatively fine, but later on it will start to show chugging here and there.
Damn, I need the security code. I listen in on their internal communications. Gotta find a radio.
Alright then. But every time you pull out the map, navigating through it feels like a slog for some reason. I don't know why. Nice kitchen.
It's not that Star Fox Adventures is like a terrible game, it's just not a good Star Fox game, and even on its own merits, it's not exactly...
As a Zelda clone, how does it function?
As a Zelda clone,
Oh.
It's just kind of very poorly constructed. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. The gameplay is very, very, very repetitive.
Doesn't it have like multiple endings?
No, it only has one, right?
No, I think so. No, it's been years, but I don't think it does. I think Natural Red might have made a review of it.
If anything, Jova, one of the more infamous thing, Jova, is how the end portion of the game is so suddenly linear and abrupt. The whole build up against General Scales deflates immediately. You can't get to fight him when Andro shows up.
Although, to Rare's credit, once again, Mr. Miyamoto shows up and ruins something because basically Jova Star Fox Adventure was originally going to be a new IP by Rare called
Dinosaur Planet. Yeah.
But then Jova Miyamoto visited Rare. He looked at Dinosaur Planet and he thought, you know what, this needs to become a Star Fox game.
Maybe that's why Rare went to Microsoft, because they got fed up for that.
Well, okay, Drew.
Yeah, well, remember, Miyamoto was also the guy who suggested for GoldenEye 007, why not have James Bond visit the hospital and shake the hands of all the bad guys he shot?
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. I also heard of that.
Okay.
Miyamoto is a good creator, but as an executive and producer, he's let's just say he's not cut out for that position.
Okay, Droops, just to set the record straight, it wasn't so much a case of Rare going to Microsoft so much as it was Rare being put on for sale and Microsoft putting up the highest bid. Like I said, Nintendo did technically have a chance to buy Rare, but for whatever reason, it seems that they opted not to. That, or they just didn't go for as high a bid and whatnot. Now,
I could see if Nintendo had bought Rare, most likely things would probably have turned out better. But I'm not entirely sure if they would have been able to retain the same kind of quality they had before. It's only speculation, of course, but
yeah.
Okay. So let's look at titles that Rare released after being bought by Microsoft.
Grabbed by the Ghoulies.
Was that good?
Pinata?
Grabbed by the Pinata. Okay, hold on. Is this important?
I'm getting the radio frequencies.
There's dialogue actually.
Stand by and take notes. Access to the service lift is
Yeah, you don't actually have to remember these. Basically, Camp just memorizes them automatically, and when you need to resolve the Enigma machine door, it's just like the other puzzle. You need to find the corresponding letter or number.
Excuse me, sir. One of our terminals has been activated. You might have heard the code.
Let's see. This time is number 2. There you go. Go on, Pedro.
Okay. No. It's yet another case. Well, actually, what was I about?
Grab by the Ghoulies.
How easy?
Thank you. Grab by the Ghoulies is okay. You know the game Zombies Ate My Neighbors?
Yes.
It was basically kind of trying to do something similar. It wasn't particularly good, but at the same time not terrible, I guess. As for Viva Pinata, like Glib said, the thing about Viva Pinata is that it's a very acquired taste to it. Like, some people like it, like Lilo Karibo is a big fan of it. However, I don't know, it's trying to be something akin to the Chow Garden, where it's, except with pinatas, it's kind of like a somewhat kind of a pet simulator, but it also has some kind of mini games involved in it.
It sounds like something that could get old pretty quickly if you're not really invested in it.
It's one of those things where you really have to be a big fan of these kinds of games, and I am actually in particular. However, I never particularly find it to be all that interesting. It's fine, but it's not anything all that noteworthy. I guess it depends on the person.
The massive size of the sleeper, along with its highly advanced technology, confounded Heller Zemo. He could not determine how to fully excavate the sleeper without undermining and collapsing.
Never mind the fact that he was in the Middle Ages.
He would not accept defeat. He began analyzing the sleeper's makeup in search of a solution to its own confinement.
The cool thing is that you can actually switch between each entry from the entry menu. You don't have to go back, select the other one, and go on.
Meticulously bred genius, of course, enabled numerous advancements by subsequent Barons Zemo.
Baron Zemo.
Well, yeah, it's the entire family line, Jova.
Yeah.
But it is I, the 12th and greatest of us all.
Sure you are.
Finally achieve the victory.
That's what that is literally what every one of them says, and they kind of all tend to fail.
The sleeper. What are the sleeper's origins? Does it hail from the stars?
Actually, that's a good question. I never bothered to check, because this is actually something taken from the comics and of the Golden Silver Age of Captain America. The Red Skull using these giant robots called the Sleepers.
The past has seen a proud line of Barons, Zemo. But for tomorrow, I must confess, Emperor Zemo has a certain poetry.
Of course, a guy wants to rule the world.
Of course.
I feel the hands of my illustrious ancestors at work.
Okay, now, up until this point, Henrik has told about the past and everything. Now it's time to learn what exactly happened and why he's not in his castle anymore and why Hydra controls it.
Title to my tastes, but I must admit the resources at his disposal are impressive indeed. I have agreed to meet with him. This evening I received the Red Skull in the ballroom. I fear the splendor of the setting was wasted on the man. He appears single-minded in his focus on conquest and the acquisition of
like
power.
you're one to talk, Zemo.
Yeah, exactly.
Traits.
Well, yeah, me too.
He clearly possesses the intelligence to recognize my importance in the success of his plans. I have agreed to future meetings. An alliance may prove mutually beneficial.
Phrases preceding unfortunate disasters.
I know, right?
Alright, before checking the radio terminal, let's see another reel that you acquired about instead the ballistics.
The obvious place to begin is with the common foot soldier. Small genetic alterations make them more resilient. But the true breakthrough is a faster synaptic response between the eye and the brain.
Oh boy.
These men are capable of acquiring a target and firing with 100% accuracy 3 times more quickly than the average human.
Okay.
This increase in combat speed allows for them to be outfitted with both close and long-range ballistic weaponry.
Oh boy.
Security personnel are equipped with light armor and a shotgun for close-range skirmishing.
By the time Kev start punching them, they won't be needing the shotgun, actually.
For a long-range eye-mounted scope and a high-powered semi-automatic rifle. These enhancements to conventional troop warfare represent a mere stepping stone towards far more ambitious plans. Still, one must begin somewhere.
They're all test subjects, of course.
Obviously.
Anyway, let's check the radio and see if we can contact Penny.
This is Captain Rogers to HQ. Do you read?
We read you, Cap. What's your status?
I took out a second gun. Now I've entered what looks like a barracks area. Be advised, I still have one last cannon to neutralize.
Long-range guns need open vistas to...
There you go, that's Howard Stark. That's a guy mentioned voiced by Liam O'Brien in this case.
Based on what we know of the layout, I'd put my money on the roof of the estate building.
Copy. I'll head in that direction and try to create some diversions along the way.
Good thinking. If we can distract them and damage their supply chain at the same time, so much the better. Over and out.
Okay.
So there you are, Chris Evans. So far, from what I've heard, Chris Evans can claim to be the only lead MCU actor, the ones that play any of the events, to be the one who actually gives most of a shit.
Also, crap, gas.
Give him a...
Clips,
Yes.
Clips. Our captain never fails us.
I also suspect the fact that the game being good actually give you motivation, just an inch here.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But compared to the Arkham games, the Camp doesn't have a proper detective mode like we can see X-rays. There is something similar to it, but it's nowhere near close, and it doesn't really work in this gas-like situation. So you don't have that tactical advantage. You have to still, properly guess. But go on, Pedro.
No, we're almost done anyway, so...
Kind of surprising that he doesn't have detective vision, because that's practically what
quick.
all games would do.
Sure, go on.
I'll sum it up real quick before this part is over. Cameo was okay. And
what about the sequel to Perfect Dark?
Perfect Dark Zero was terrible.
The remaster of Conker's Bad Fur Day, or remake.
It's censored.
Ew,
yeah. Even if it's quote unquote better looking, it has all the censorship that wasn't needed.
And Nuts and Bolts was Betrayal, and after that was Kinect Sports, and after that Sea of Thieves.
Well, that's a mess, isn't it?
All right, then. See you for the next part.
See ya.
See ya.